Every episode of Ask Kink Anything, I ask you if you have any questions to ask me, and in the recent episode with Ludwig, oh my god, we got some good ones. I am excited about all of these. If you haven't yet watched that episode or other episodes, you can check them out at youtube.com/complexly. And we're going to start with my favorite. This one turned out very well. It's from Arboreal Blazer, who says, your point about oily mirror drawings got me thinking, if I, a 6'4" man, army crawl naked, maintaining as much skin contact as possible with the ground, will the amount of oil I secrete onto said ground in a given distance be more or less than the average snail trail by volume? I feel like the significantly increased surface area might counteract the reduction in production. Truly a beautiful question, but is it possible to answer accurately? Luckily, there is a 1981 study called Estimation of Sebum Production Rates in Man by Measurement of the Squalene Content of Skin Biopsies that resulted in an average measurement of 1.45 milligrams per 10 square centimeters every 3 hours. The average man has a surface area significantly more than 10 square centimeters. It's about 2 square meters, but you are bigger than average, question asker, so let's say 2.2. That's 22,000 square centimeters. First, we divide that by 10 because the study gave results in every 10 square centimeters, which is a little weird. Then we have to scale up for the whole body and then scale up for the whole day because the study also only measured every 3 hours. And that gives us 25 grams of sebum produced per day, which is a lot. But that is only half the puzzle. Maybe snails produce more. That would be weird since they don't often weigh 25 grams, but who knows? Nature is weird. However, there is also a study from the year 2000 called Data on Mucus Production in Some Species of Snails and Slugs. Which, I mean, thank you. Thanks. I just thank you to the scientists doing the science. The largest species of snail they measured was the burgundy snail, and it produced just half a gram of mucus per day. So congratulations, question asker, and also everyone else on Earth. It doesn't matter. You don't even need to be an abnormally large person. You can be a normal-sized adult and produce way more sebum than a snail produces mucus, which, it may be important to say, are two different things. We make mucus as well, but sebum is not mucus. Next question, it's from Riley Fofiley, who asks, Hank, why are sedated/unconscious patients given painkillers? Can they feel pain while unconscious? This is also a good one. Now, this is, of course, outside of my areas of expertise, but I looked into it, watched some interviews with some doctors about this, and there are a couple of reasons. First, sedated bodies are still alive, and their nervous systems can still register and respond to pain, even if the pain isn't consciously experienced. This is wild and a little existential, but this is why people are often given painkillers during surgery or intensive care. Pain isn't just a conscious experience, it's also a biological signal that can trigger stress responses like increased heart rate, blood pressure, and inflammation, all of which are problems of their own separate from the physical experience of pain. If your blood pressure and heart rate go up because your body is experiencing pain, that could make things more difficult for surgeons, but it could also increase the chances of something going dangerously wrong. And also there's like a second thing where when people wake up from general anesthesia after surgery, you do not want them waking up to the full-on pain of having just had surgery. The painkillers have that added benefit. But this is crazy to me, to know that my body can experience pain even when I am not experiencing pain. Very existential, very odd, uncomfy even. Next, we've got a question from Killian Twu, who asks, as a cancer survivor yourself, have you seen Kyle Hill's video on the cancer treatment using actinium? I hear they are having some very effective results. This is super exciting. I did watch this video. Kyle did a great job with this video explaining why it is such a powerful treatment. Basically, they bind an atom of this radioactive actinium to a molecule that's specifically designed to stick to a molecule that is on the surface of cancer cells. Once it's stuck there, this particular kind of radiation that doesn't go very far, but it is very ionizing in the distance it goes, it will irradiate specifically that cancer cell and maybe just like a couple of cells outside of that radius, most likely to also be cancer cells. Even like a few of these things sticking to a cancer cell will do the trick, and since alpha radiation gets absorbed really quickly, it does little or no damage to the surrounding cells. But and I am a nerd for cancer treatment stuff now, so excuse me, but there are always limitations. Cancers are so different from each other. So the number one thing is that you have to find a molecule to bind to that only the cancer cells are putting on their surface. That's something called specificity. So some cancer cells have specific proteins on the surface of their cells that no other cell in the body has. With actinium treatment, you really want just the cancer to be expressing that protein. Otherwise, you're going to damage other parts of the patient's body, potentially lethally. Some other targeted treatments, it's kind of okay to have some off-target effects, but with actinium, since it's so damaging, you don't want any of that protein that you're binding to show up anywhere else in the body. And second, it's only really going to work if all of the cancer cells are expressing these specific proteins that you're binding to. And some cancers are actually pretty diverse. They might have one population that has those surface proteins and one population that doesn't. And it's very difficult to know that before you start treatment. But like some cancers tend to be really homogeneous with all the cells looking really similar, while other cancers tend to be pretty diverse. And if there are any cancer cells that don't express the protein that you're binding to, then those ones will survive, and all of the future cancer will be descended from those cells that don't have the protein, so you end up with a cancer that is immune to this therapy. So you need that specific binding target that is homogeneously produced across the entire cancer cell population. That's not always a thing, though there are certain cancers this is very good for. Also, you want a situation where the tumors are relatively small, because actinium will have a hard time killing the interiors of big, bulky tumors. There are certain prostate cancers and blood cancers where all these boxes are checked, and this could be like a huge game changer for those. Then there are other cancers like lung or breast or pancreatic cancer that either don't have super specific surface targets that we know of at least, or that have super diverse cell populations, or that have big bulky tumors that are hard to get inside of. And I tell you all this because the most important thing to remember about cancers is that there are many different diseases. So we could find a really robust cure that works pretty much with every patient that has a specific kind of cancer, but still be no further down the path to curing other kinds of cancer. But these actinium therapies are very exciting. And if I someday get leukemia because of my cancer treatment, which there is a higher chance that will happen to me, this might very well be part of what saved my life, because leukemias are one of the kinds of cancer that this therapy seems to potentially be good at. Another question from Pigeon8388. Hank, if you ever see this, I'd like to ask you about which food ingredients you avoid at the store. Are there any major ones you would recommend people don't eat? So I think particular ingredients can be really misleading, because ingredients are just the things that are put into food versus things that are already in food. And one of the big things that I actually do watch out for and try to avoid are things that are fried. And this is a bummer because I also love things that are fried. But there's a few problems with like chips and nuggets and fries and tots. First is that they are absolutely delicious, and I will 100% eat too much of them. But also when it comes to the actual chemicals in the food, this isn't an ingredient. It's just a thing that happens. When you heat up carbs in high temperature oil, it can create a bunch of weird molecules that, like if you saw them listed as ingredients, would take up the entire back of the package. And some of those molecules, like acrylamide or advanced glycation end products, AGEs, they have been linked in studies to things like inflammation, oxidative stress, even increased risk of cancer in animals, though not yet in humans. They're not poison. At the doses they are in food, they are obviously not poison. Like, I'm eating chips all the time, I'm not dying. But they are definitely in the eat less of this when you can category. I'm not scared of them, I respect them. But again, that's not the whole story of why I'm not a huge fan of fried foods, especially when combined with sugary drinks. The reality is that I know that if I start, I'll probably eat more than I want to, not because I'm hungry, but because that combination is hyper palatable. So it's less about avoiding a specific ingredient and more about steering clear of food that is designed to bypass your brain's I'm full signal. This question is from Liayo, who asks, you know how you can suck in your gut even when you're really full? I assume it's mostly liquid in there, so how are you able to reduce so much volume? Are we just building up a bunch of pressure in our intestines, and is that healthy? I have great news. It's fine. Your gut is designed to be able to change shape in all kinds of weird ways. Organs move around. It doesn't feel great that this is the case, but it's squishy in there. I mean, during pregnancy, imagine the situation there. Things move around dramatically. And pregnancy isn't healthy for the body. It's a significant thing for a body to go through, and it can cause a bunch of problems. That's way more impactful than like just sucking in your gut. So the thing to start out with here is that our tissues are mostly made of water, and water isn't compressible. So you're not actually compressing much, you're just rearranging it. Now things can go wrong when you rearrange things, which is why things are harder when you're in the middle of pregnancy. But mostly when you're sucking in your gut, your organs just head into areas that are usually occupied by your lungs. So by tightening your core muscles, so making it so that organs can't go out, and then lifting your diaphragm, you're sneaking your guts up under your rib cage. This is kind of gross, but this is what's happening. You're stealing a little room from your lungs. That's why if you're like sucking in your gut, you can't take as deep of a breath. Now, your body works best when your diaphragm and belly can expand and contract freely, like a well-oiled accordion. I have no idea if they oil accordions, but like you don't want to be like a can of soup. But obviously it's also positive to have a strong core that supports your body, and it is fine to suck in your gut from time to time. And this last question is from Lisa Hislop, who asks, as a 1981 baby who keeps saying she should work out more than just my daily walk, please explain everything you mean about muscles, creatine, and the "this is my last year to do something about it" comment. Fellow early 80s babies, I'm not sure if this will be properly motivating. I would love to motivate you to do more physical exercise. I would love to myself be motivated to do more physical exercise. But it is not true that this is my or your last year to do something about it as we get older. But like really starting in our 30s, our bodies start to naturally lose muscle if you don't do something about it. And that's not great. Muscles are insurance. They help protect you from physical injury. They also seem to just make a body healthier in general. Like people with more muscle mass do better in all kinds of ways. As we get older, putting on muscle just gets harder, both because of hormonal changes and because getting older means more risk of injury. So injuries are more common, so it's harder to work out as much. But the real difficulty in putting on muscle seems to begin in your 50s. So basically, it's a lot easier to build the protective effects of muscle mass in your 40s than it is in your 50s. And as for creatine, there's plenty of consistent evidence that creatine supplements actually do make it a little bit easier to put on muscle, and it makes recovery from resistance training faster. And I didn't know this until I was researching this question. This may actually be especially true for women, which is interesting because I would guess that the vast majority of creatine supplements are sold to men. Thank you to everyone who left absolutely stellar questions on this video. There were so many, and I did not get to all of them, but I got to a lot of them. I've been recording this for quite a while now. I hope that you enjoyed it. There's a new episode of Ask Hank Anything coming out every month right now if you go and subscribe at youtube.com/complexly.